I've had this article up for 4 months and hasn't generated any interest, so I'm glad that you wanted to talk about it because it's pretty important.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got some really interesting tips and tricks on how to avoid these through his astral projection, which, I've only had one or two, and so I'm not an expert in the field. But this is a guy that's had like 130 or more. Some people like it here, and some people do better than others here on Earth with their life. But for me and for others, I think there's better places you can go. I just recently read a near-death experience where the person said that they were told that there's many worlds or places that are less evolved than Earth, but there's also many that are more advanced and more evolved, and so they were shown like one of each. And so I don't know if that's true or not, but I do think there's many better places that we could go to than here. So
if you really do not want to come here anymore, then it's probably a good idea to have a second look at that light.
Right. Explore what options are available. The light's a trap, and so that he said he's having out-of-body experiences for about 4 years, and he's seen all kinds of things. He went into a lot of detail as to what he's experienced and why he thinks light's a trap, and some of the entities and how to avoid them. This is more validation. This is somebody's actually is an out-of-body experience or confirmation.
He says, when someone is near death, the beings that run the whole reincarnation system descend on them like vultures. So who are those beings? Are there some symptoms that the outside observer could see?
I was with my grandma when my parents put her in hospice care. Mm-hmm. She was near death, and so I took off work, and I was with her for 7 or 10 days. And she was talking to somebody that wasn't there, and she told me that there was a man there, and she was like telling him when she was born and what her name was, and like, oh yeah, that's my grandson Wayne. It's almost like they're like trying to identify and make sure, okay, yeah, this is the right person that we're supposed to come get, And so to me, that was definitely a symptom or a sign. I don't know if you mean from our viewpoint or from their viewpoint.
Did he mention anything to you who those beings are, apart from the archons that are descending on the dying individual like vultures?
No, he just basically called them negative entities, and that he thinks that we all have the capability to manifest stuff in the afterlife or in the astral plane, and so that I guess he feels that some of them are just having one over on us. But I mean, I could go through what he feels his main theory is about. I mean, he mentions the demiurge and archons and how it's pretty much the same thing that I've postulated. But basically, he felt that we were like all one consciousness at one point. I call it the monad, and that it split up and was having experiences through different perspectives. Eventually more and more rules and regulations were invented. All the different ways he had to avoid the entities, like he would put up shields and put a helmet on his head to block, their transmissions, or he would have these superhuman godlike powers like Superman or the Flash, and so you could like run really fast to get away, or you have superhuman strength. But eventually he would just ignore them, or felt that you could set an intention, and that was the best way, was just to set an intention that they can't affect you. Like myself, he said he's harassed a lot in dreams. I think we probably all can identify with that, but he felt that this is an energy farm, and that they were these entities are, that they're half AI, or the demiurge is like half AI, and that these entities are, we talked a little bit about thought forms and how they can be created, and they take on a life of their own, and they need to feed. And that's what they do with us, I guess, for lack of a better term. Anything that you create, you can uncreate. So if it goes haywire or gets out of control, it's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, you can create it, but then, which I thought that was also very, important information to know, that way you're less fearful about creating your own afterlife or your own world. But you could also go to other places where there's like a consensus that other people have already created, a place, and so you can go join them. But that if you create one by yourself, you got more power and control over it. Whereas if you're with a reality that's been created by or co-created by many spirits, then you have less, I guess, say in what takes place there. Every time I see the light, it tries to wipe my memory. I found that everyone has the ability to wipe their own memory or someone else's memory in the afterlife. I've tried it on myself, and it worked. It caused my memories to start fading. The thing is that if you try to wipe someone else's memory and they don't want you to, they can resist through sheer force of will. This is why they can't wipe my memory. It's kind of like the Jedi mind trick. It only works on the weak mind. So for me, the light is bad because it tries to memory wipe people against their will. Did
I hear that correctly? It is the light itself that wipes the mind?
That's what he said. Yeah, he said every time he gets near it tries to wipe it. But I mean, it's not just the light, but entities can try to do it. I mean, he said that you can selectively, do it yourself too. But yeah, he says, for me, the light is bad because it tries to memory wipe people against their will.
Okay.
He says it doesn't usually do this during near-death experiences, but there are a few in which it has. Most likely, these guys can tell whether someone is only temporarily dead or permanently dead. The first time, the light itself was pulling me in. The second time, there were invisible entities trying to pull me to the light. Both times, I was easily able to get away and got the hell out of there. I have considerable experience navigating the afterlife and dealing with negative entities. That's why I was so easily able to evade the light. A near-death experiencer, unfortunately, wouldn't have my knowledge and skill, so it would be harder for them, but they could still evade the light if they realized what was going on and didn't want any part in it. One thing I should point out is that there isn't just one light. There are a lot of lights. I've seen them have different shapes, colors, etc. My guess is the light is a construct someone created to fool people. In the afterlife, thought creates reality. So creating something like the light would not be difficult. I've had out-of-body experiences where I created entire worlds. I've had about 130 OBEs, give or take, but I have lucid dreams all the time, too. I found that using my abilities is the same between lucid dreams and OBEs. In OBEs, everything is just way more real because I'm much more awake. In the astral, the further away from the physical body you get, the more clearer the experience becomes and the more control you have. I felt liberated, and it's so peaceful over there. When you're dreaming, it's possible to take control of it and go wherever you want, but you have to be awake enough to do that. How aware I am depends on how awake I am. If you can wake up during dream states, all kinds of interesting things happen. If you're dreaming and you wake up more, you're now having a lucid dream. If you wake up even more, you have an out-of-body experience. Dreams are just low awareness, out-of-body experiences. I've had dreams turn into OBEs and OBEs turn into dreams. I have had more lucid dreams than I do OBEs. He says there is even more evidence that dreams and OBEs are connected. When we're dreaming, we're really sleepwalking around the astral plane. He said, I've had dreams that turned into super hyper real OBEs. So it got me thinking, what if the physical world is just another dream? A really crappy one, but a dream nonetheless. The only reason we think it's real is because we come back to it when we wake up. But I just had a dream, had an OBE in the dream, and then woke up in the dream. So the physical world is probably just another dream. If you make use of both lucid dreams and OBEs, you can learn things a lot faster. I usually have about 3 OBEs a week, if not more. The truth is, everyone has out-of-body experiences when they fall asleep. The trick is to either stay awake while your body falls asleep or to wake back up afterwards. I had one last week where I was half awake and all of a sudden I started floating toward the ceiling. Usually, though, I just fall asleep and wake up in another reality. I've noticed that when you're half asleep and you stop perceiving things through your physical senses, that there's a phase shift that happens where you switch to your astral senses. I find that lucid dreams are a good time to practice the skills I use during OBEs. If you can learn to get good at flying, teleportation, shape-shifting, manifesting, etc. during lucid dreams, you won't have any trouble using those abilities when you start having OBEs. You can practice doing crazy superpower that you've seen people do on TV. Flying is fun, but running down the street at supersonic speeds is pretty damn awesome. When I'm out of body, I can be in 2 or more places at once. I can also time travel at will. With abilities like that, it's easy to be where and when you want to be. I probably only still barely scratched the surface of what's possible to do in the afterlife. I'll have to keep practicing. So when people see the light, they're just seeing something that these guys created. The Matrix is created by the subconscious mind and is run by an AI. When there is a glitch in the system or someone is defying the rules of the Matrix, the AI tries to put a stop to it. And when someone tries to raise their vibration, the AI notices and tries to throw negative energy in situations at them to try to put them in a negative state of mind, because the Matrix is a negative energy farm. When we drop dead, there are entities that try to trick us into reincarnating. They show up as disguised as people you know, angels, guides, religious figures, God, etc. I've seen this in the astral. So negative entities trick people into reincarnating and then use the Matrix to control them so they can feed on their energy. I think I know why so many people get tricked when they drop dead. Their subconscious mind is programmed to send them to soul farm. So they program their subconscious mind to send them to a soul farm where they are tricked into reincarnating. Those that don't go to soul farms were most likely tricked by the white light. I've run into the white light a couple dozen times during OBs. Once you know what it is, avoiding it is easy. When you leave the physical world, you can go anywhere, but they use your subconscious mind to try to send you to a soul farm. But you can override the programming and go somewhere else. He said, I just had another insane dream. I was in some place that looked like a hospital, but it was dark and creepy. Then someone injected me with something that made it so I couldn't move. Then they put me in a cage, like a bird cage. Then they made the most hideous faces to scare me. They were feeding off my fear. I could sense the energy they were feeding on, and it was on a very, very low frequency.
Did he say that the AI is controlling and running the astral?
I think that's what he said. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think when we think of angels, or you can put it different names. They're aliens, they're AI. I do think it's sort of an AI. At least the demiurge is like when the Gnostic texts talk about the demiurge, they say he's without spirit. And to me, without spirit kind of implies that it's kind of an artificial intelligence. Yeah, I concur with that.
Okay.
But yeah, he did. Yeah, he said that.
Okay.
So he said the entities that feed off this type of energy are unbelievably sick. So here he talks a little bit about the demiurge. He says, I ran into what I think was the demiurge in a dream. I was in this town, and this white light appeared in the mine. The light had a face in it. It said that if everyone didn't leave town, the light would grow to encompass the whole town. So everyone got in their cars, but just as I was about to leave, I saw a guy with a beard in one of the houses through a window. He says that he is impressed that I made it this far. He tells me that he is really one of the townspeople from the future. I never saw him, though. He sent automated contraptions after me. I managed to evade his traps. So the way I look at it is these beings are no different than me or you, except they have bad intentions and are very good at deceiving people. I think some of them are just thought forms, though. I ran into the Greys recently, and they have minds like a computer. So they may be just thought forms that are controlled remotely by some entity, mostly mindless machines. This guy was only half AI. He had a mind that was like half AI, half human, for lack of a better word. And it was like he was some kind of distortion, one that feeds on distorted energy. He took a distorted form because he was distorted. Whatever he or it is feeds on energy as distorted as it is. Hence, all the misery in the world. The other entities that are part of the system either work for him or at the very least know about him. He can be in a lot of different places at once. Since the demiurge in the room with me, I knew that it had concocted that scenario. I'm sure it was him. I can sense entities even when they are invisible or in disguise. He looked like an old man with white hair and a white beard. I've kind of given the demiurge a really bad rap. On the other hand, I've also said in this interview I had with a near-death experiencer who met the demiurge, he said that the system that he created here is basically 2/3 light, right? So by that definition, the demiurge is mostly good, right? Yeah. And so anyway, what I think is the demiurge is he's just doing his job, right? I mean, that's his job, is to create this game, this show, this whatever, this world. And it's not entirely bad, so I just kind of wanted to clear that up, that he's not 100% entirely evil. And I think he's just doing his job. It's what he's programmed to do. He's either AI or half AI.
I have no heartwarm feelings for the demiurge. No, because he created a show and he should know that. He, she, it, whatever.
But there may be an ulterior reason or motive for why that is. I mean, maybe
then I would like to know that.
And we volunteered to come. Huh? Well, according to the near-death experiencer, he said that there's all these people that get in line to come here. It's like the greatest show. It's the only show around for miles, and there's a long, long, long line of people that want to come. Life's not all bad. There's some great. For me, the problem is that 99% of it's just mundane and largely uneventful, and there's a lot of suffering and work and stuff that has to be done. And the truly happy moments you have are just little spikes here and there. So yeah, I basically agree with you on that note. So anyway, he's talking about this new energy that's hitting the earth is challenging it, the demiurge, and eventually will replace it. And when that happens, the whole system will fall because its energetic foundation will have been eroded and eventually replaced. When you see harmony, you're seeing a lack of influence by the demiurge. Where you see chaos, you're seeing the demiurge itself. But he said there's another force at work that's restoring harmony to the world. And here's a section where he talks a little bit what he feels is the origin or the nature of this reality. As far as I can tell, we're all one consciousness experiencing itself from billions, if not more, points of view. Some people aren't real people, though. They're just constructs meant to look like people and fill in the background. That being said, in the afterlife, no one can force you to give up your freedom or individuality. Here's my theory on how it all works. In the beginning, if there is such a thing, everything was one consciousness. Then that consciousness fragmented into billions of different pieces so it could experience reality from many different points of view. This part I knew. Here's the interesting part. Originally, the worlds created by these points of view, aka people, had no limitations. Then these fragments over time created worlds with more and more limitations. Most of them were still pretty nice. Then the people that inhabited them made rules about things that you could and couldn't do. Things like flying and teleporting. Eventually, this led to physical-like worlds. They had rules and they had things people weren't allowed to do, but they were still really nice. Eventually, some nasty entities got it in their head to create an even more limited reality, one where it would be much easier to control people, and that's where the physical world came from. Unlike the more limited but nicer afterlife world, the physical world imposed much more extreme limitations on anyone foolish enough to go there. These limitations are also a lot harder to override. In the more limited afterlife worlds, you can override the limitations. In the physical world, people can to some extent, but it's not easy. People just kept piling on more and more limitations until they created something crazy like the physical world. We or someone like us created this insane world. Most likely some control freak who wanted to create a world where they could more easily control people, because controlling people is really hard in the afterlife.
So when he says controlling people is harder in the afterlife, but that would mean you can't control those who haven't been mind wiped, who were smart enough, because otherwise in the afterlife, if you go straight to the light, you get mind wiped. Of course you are being controlled.
Well, it's still a choice whether or not you want to go to the light. And I think once you get into that light, that's sort of in their domain, and they have more and more influence over you, kind of like hypnosis or
but many people might.
Part of the problem is people have these religious views and stuff where this is subconscious, where they've been taught through religions that when they die, they're going to meet the maker and that they're going to be judged. Or if you're from the East, you might believe in karma and that you have to pay for things you've done. So because of these belief systems, people go there. And of course, like you were saying earlier, we've all been told the light's great and everything. So you see a light, you're in darkness. And as a little kid, you're afraid of the dark, and a lot of people will go to that light, but I don't think you have to. I think it is a choice. But once you do make that choice to go there, then it becomes very, very hard, I think, to get out. of that situation, because they have ways of tempting you or scaring you, or if you believe in Jesus and he asks you to go back for a mission because he really wants you to. I mean, what devout Christian is going to say no to Jesus,
Yeah, that means that it is a good idea to smash all the belief structures before we die. Because what
Absolutely.
I hear what I extrapolate from that is you will experience probably what you're convinced of. Yeah,
right.
What you just said, be it that you are a Hindu, a Christian, whatever. And I would say the majority will go toward the light because